paper each and every day. We listen to the radio and the television. We hear about things that seem oh so far away, and we personalize them to know how they're going to affect us, what's going to happen to us. We don't know what tomorrow may hold. But we're very fortunate to have here with us three people that have had a look behind the curtain, who've walked the walk and not just talk the talk. So we're joined this afternoon with Jason Redman, Katelyn van Dam, and Nicholas Bridle. Apparently, obviously, Mr. Bridle, Major Bridle, excuse me, wears a little different uniform. I'm sure he might give you a hint as to what that might mean. Major Katelyn van Dam, are you in uniform? I'm sorry. No, not in uniform. Those behind us a little bit, I assume, and certainly Jason, that's behind you. But we're anxious to hear your story and get your advice. Why don't we begin with Jason Redman?
Good afternoon. How is everyone? Thanks for coming. Amazing words earlier. Obviously, for me, I know sitting there listening to that, there truly is evil in this world. I've witnessed it firsthand. Individuals willing to kill their own people just to try and kill us and attribute it to the religion they follow. I spent 21 years in the United States Navy. Almost all of that with SEAL teams. Went through basic underwater demolition SEAL training at the age of started at 18, graduated at 19, and went on and did a lot of missions down in Central and South America pre 9/11, and then after 9/11 ended up doing a deployment to Afghanistan, and then a follow-on deployment to Iraq, where I was severely wounded in September of 2007, caught in a very well-executed al-Qaeda ambush, shot at least 8 times that we know of. Never got my front plate back, so I'm not sure how many rounds that took. And that led to a journey of getting put back together, but I wanted to finish my military career, so I ended up staying throughout the surgeries and then retiring 2 weeks shy of 21 years.
All right, good afternoon. Major Katelyn van Dam, United States Marine Corps, a 2005 graduate of the Naval Academy. So I know some of you folks are out there. 2005, barely graduate of the Naval Academy, but it happened, sitting before you. I chose the Marine Corps because it appealed to me on multiple levels, and I was a plebe, a freshman, when 9/11 happened. So certainly there were many of us who wanted to drop out and go join the fight. But I stuck it out, wanted a weapon system, so decided I would fly the AH-1 Whiskey Super Cobra. It's an attack helicopter. Finished flight school in 2007, got my wings, went to a squadron that wasn't going straight over to the dirt. So I was initially volunteered for other missions, but stuck it out, did a great deployment on a Navy ship. So all you Navy folks in here, I spent some time on your equipment. We did an anti-piracy mission in the Gulf of Aden, just off the coast of Somalia. Then after that, my patience paid out and made it to Afghanistan for quite an active summer. Our primary missions that we flew in Afghanistan were the Cobras and attack helicopters, so no people in the back. We were there to support troops on the ground and take out any threats to them. Also, another extremely rewarding mission that we flew was escort for medevac. So think about that as the armed bodyguards that go in for the medevac planes, because the Army medevacs, especially because they have the Red Cross on the side, they don't get to bring any weapons with them except for the personal weapons on them. And if you ever want to meet somebody with a spine of steel, they're called dust off. You talk to an Army medevac helicopter pilot, because I have seen them go into hot zones before we show up to pull somebody out with no guns or anything. So quite an impressive group of individuals. And then I came home and have actually spent the last 3 years down in Quantico, Virginia at the basic school. Had the opportunity to train 3 years worth of young Marine second lieutenants, which just graduated my platoon in May, and it was probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. You've got a lot to look forward to, no matter what service you decide to go in at the end. And really excited for your future. Don't worry, you didn't miss the war. There'll be some place that we're going to put you. So don't stress about that. I thought I was going to miss it in '05, and I managed to get there. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick Bridle, as you'll have guessed by my crazy pants and my different accent. I'm from the UK. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that I feel hugely underqualified to sit in the same chair as some of the people we've seen earlier on today. And it's probably fair to say that I represent the 99.999 of other folk who aren't such awe-inspiring characters as them. And certainly if this English major got shot, then it wouldn't be the blood on his red tunic that gave him away. I'd probably be lying on the floor wailing. So what did I do? I left high school at 18, and I'd always wanted to join the forces, and I went straight to Sandhurst, commissioned from there in 2000, and went straight on counter-terrorism operations in Northern Ireland. 9/11 then happened, and since then I've deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, and a number of other places. And each time I've been away with American servicemen, working alongside or with them. And so I'm very glad to be here today and look forward to talking to you a little bit more and this evening as well.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves, and we're going to ask you a few questions, and we're going to open it up to the audience and get their take as well. You all really, not very long ago, you could have been any one of these folks in the audience. You look back and you think, was I prepared? What did I miss? What should they be kind of keeping an eye out for? What do you want them to know that, that stuff that I kind of blew off, a little more important than I thought it would be? I think that kind of advice would be particularly of interest and very important to them. Just kind of look back on yourself a little bit and think, I remember Naval Academy. They had your youngster cruise, you having a good time, you threw the hat, and then not very long later, the hat was thrown at you. What should they be looking to prepare themselves for the surprise? Because it is a surprise. We've heard about it from a number of other veterans today. It is a surprise. You got to prepare yourself to expect the unexpected. Who wants to start?
So, I think the biggest thing is you've got to train hard. I think that you make your greatest gains when you are training outside of your comfort zone, when you're starting to become uncomfortable. And there's no doubt that special operations training pushes ourselves to that, but it doesn't mean that any other training out there can't do it. You should always be looking at how can we make it harder? How can we make it more difficult? What's the absolute worst case scenario we can come up with? And that's what you should be pushing your people through, and that's what you should be pushing yourself through. There were many times that combat was actually easier than training. Obviously not in the most extreme situations like, the situation I got shot. That, thankfully, we don't shoot people in training. But if you can push yourself and your people into those most extreme situations, when you actually get into the hard situations that potentially combat could bring, mentally you're prepared for it. You've seen things like this before. The other thing I hear a lot of our future warriors, our future leaders, they question, and I did it too, am I going to be able to stand up in that moment? I had seen great warriors before me who had done these incredible things on the battlefield. And you ask yourself, man, if I got put in that situation, would I step up? Could I do it? And as long as you're training hard, as long as you're listening to your people, to the leaders above you, just about every person out there, when they get in those moments, they step up and they do amazing things. And really, you can't pick and choose when things are going to happen. They're just going to happen. All you can do is be prepared for it, be ready for it. And when those moments come, you step up, you do what you were trained to do, and you think about the people around you, especially, a lot of you are future leaders. You think about, how do I get my people out of here? How do I accomplish the mission? How do I adapt to the unexpected? So it comes down to training and preparation. Train hard, stay hard.
Yeah, I think many of you have heard this before, but nobody rises to the occasion. You fall back on trailing. So kind of to dovetail off of that, don't underestimate the importance of reflection. whether that's after you've trained, whether that's at the end of the day doing whatever you're doing. Okay, this is what we did, these were the various tactics I used, or even this was my mentality going in as a leader. How could I have done that better? And I'm gonna be very candid to this audience because I think it's important that you don't forget that somewhere right now in this world, there is somebody training to kill you. There is, and that's just the honest truth about it. And you need to constantly, that shouldn't make you paranoid, that should just make you vigilant. And while you're recognizing the importance of training your subordinates, yourself, even sometimes you're in a situation to train your superiors, be reflective on what that training is. And after the fact, also think about how could I have done it better? And just most importantly, also recognize you are in the people business. I know General Ritchie spoke to that, right? The Patton quote about, hey, we fight with weapons. Excuse me, we use our people to fight, right? We use the weapons to fight, but people are what we're going to war with. And so based on that, remember that while you do have to stay vigilant constantly, recognize there is a time when you need to allow your people the time to see their families. Sometimes that vigilance is taking a brain break or giving people an opportunity to take care of their families and their family problems, or just spend time even if there are no issues before you do go into combat or you deploy or you go on a 2-week training, whatever that is. So manage your people well by caring about them, and then stay vigilant and make sure that you are able to at least give them a good shot of bringing them home by training them well.
Yeah, I think I'd echo those comments. I mean, as leaders, your responsibility is to achieve the mission and to do so with hopefully none but as fewer casualties as possible. And to do that, the best way, I think, is really to trust the system. You know, lots of, I think I certainly ask myself, why on earth am I standing here at 3 in the morning polishing shoes or whatever? Or why do I have to walk in that certain way? Well, it's all designs, and it's the distillation of you know, centuries in some cases of experience, and it's designed to get you thinking and reacting in a certain way. And you also have a responsibility to make sure that your men and women do that under you too. You think, right, if you go skydiving, obviously you're scared before you jump out of the plane, but you've been taught beforehand that when you jump out, you're going to assume a certain position, you're going to pull your chute. If that goes wrong, you're going to ditch it and pull a reserve. All those things are done by the numbers, and it's exactly the same when you get to combat. Something happens, and the first reaction is an instinctive one that's born out of your training. And there is no part in the pamphlet where it says, now turn to your incredible hero and get him to win the fight. It's all done on systems, and if you've got one of those, then fantastic. But if you don't, it's down to you and down to the preparation that you've put in before you get there. I think the other thing is that, another bit of advice would be that for the last 10, 12, well, 14 years almost, there's been a very heightened sense of alertness. There's been wars going on all over the place, and everything's got very, very serious, and rightly so, because it is. But then there's also a requirement for you to round out that ball, and every person on your command and yourself should seek to be a round ball rather than a one-dimensional object. So as well as training, make sure you look into the people under you, you get to know them, and there are lots of different ways to do that that don't necessarily happen in fatigues.
One of the things that I reflect on, and I know others, and part of what I'm going to make some assumptions, what some of the students may be thinking about is, you've done your training, you're ready to go. Actually, you kind of, let's get going. Time's up, it's now I'm going to prove myself. But what is it that goes through your head? What went through your head before that first engagement? What was that emotion? What were those thoughts early on? I know you're focused on your mission, but there has to be that little bit of introspection beforehand. Are you ready for it? Are you up for it? What was on your mind?
You know, I think everybody has their own sequence of events or their own little rituals they do before they go into combat. You know, I know for myself, I was a leader, so I would rotate between assault force commander and mobility force commander. So there were a lot of different things that had to be done prior to launching on a mission. With many of the missions that we did, they were a very compressed timeline. They were time-sensitive targets, so we were looking at sometimes, you know, a very fast window to turn around. So there was a flurry of activity to get everything ready, And then the last thing I would do is focus on my personal gear, what I needed, and then I would always take a few minutes and I'd go back to my room. I had a slideshow of my kids and family. I would watch it. It was about 2 minutes, and then I would shut that down and I would place that out of my mind, and I would accept the fact that I may not come back after this mission, that this was it, and I would push it behind me. You know, you have a job to do. That is your focus. Your focus is on all the tasks that are assigned with that mission, and then. That's exactly what I was doing. I was starting to think about, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What in extremis things? What if we what if we hit an IED on the way to the target? How are we going to execute it? You know, it's your mind's constantly going. You're thinking about the mission. So there's no more time to think. For me, there was no more time to think about family or anything else. You know, there was a clear separation. Once I passed that line of demarcation, the focus was on the mission itself. And leading all the way up into several of the big firefights that I was in, I will admit, never in the middle of that firefight did I start thinking about things back at home or even my own death. Because I'll be honest, there were so many things that I needed to focus on. You know, I need to move this maneuver element up to address the enemy. Where am I taking fire from? I've got a down man. Where are we going to move to, our casualty collection point? You know, I need to call in a close air support mission. Where's my head count? You know, those are the things that you should be focused on because that's your job. Your job is to save your people, accomplish your mission, and crush the enemy. That is what we do. That is how we win wars. And that's what your focus should be. And then when you get home, you once again think about your family and you think about, being the round ball because that's what we need to be. And then you prep for the next mission.
Well, the first thing that went through my mind when I finally was in a situation where we shoot Hellfire missiles off of a Cobra, so it's not a trigger finger, we joke it's the death thumb, right? It's a little red button. So the very first time I went to shoot in anger was a Hellfire shot. It wasn't an overly complicated situation, it was IED and placers, but the PG version of went through my mind was, don't mess this up. Right? Switchology, your adrenaline's going, and the same thing, you switch off. The second that, for us, we would stand tick alert. So that meant that there would be one section, so 2 helicopters, that were always prepped and ready to go with all of our equipment already in there, and we'd wait for a siren to go off. And that was your duty that day. You didn't fly any other missions. You just sat around the squadron and waited for, sounds like the old World War II air sirens, right? So that goes off, you run to the aircraft. Your adrenaline's going, and again, you're not thinking, you're going through the exact same things to turn on the aircraft. You're working with the Marines, those maintenance Marines, even though few of them ever had the opportunity to leave the wire, are the reason that we were able to support anyone on the ground ever. They were amazing. They'd pull 18-hour days. Anyways, you'd launch, right? And the first few times I was on tick alert, we call it strip alert, I launched and nothing happened. But then, finally, I got to shoot in anger, and it was don't mess this up. And it's interesting because when you shoot a Hellfire off of a Cobra, there's a few second delay, and I hit the button, and no Hellfire came off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I messed this up. You know, these guys are going to run away, or children are going to come up, because you have to make sure, obviously, you try to minimize any collateral damage, any civilian casualties. And then it comes off the rails. And after that, it's a confidence booster because you go in and, I don't know if I can speak for you gentlemen, but before you ever pull a trigger in anger, you do think, okay, can I do this? I'm trained to do this, I've thought about it, but when it really comes down to it, am I gonna be able to? I think I am. And if you're thinking that before, don't question that. That's 100% acceptable. Most of the people that I've talked to think that you're not a coward, you're not anything. Once you get there, you will do your job because that is what you are trained to do. So if you're not sure if you're going to be able to do it, that's 100% natural. Once you get there, you will. And then after that first shot, it wasn't quite as scary, and I gained the confidence.
I definitely drew the short straw going last because I get to think for 5 minutes to long straw. I got a long straw. I think that it's an evolutionary thing insofar as, when you join the military and you join because you're red-blooded and you want to go and fight for your country. And I think that if you're not doing that, then you're probably in the wrong business, because you need that to drive you through what comes ahead. And as such, I was excited. I remember being really excited the first operation I went on, and if I'm being completely honest, I wanted to get into a fight because I wanted to fight for my country. I think though that as time goes on and you get into that first fight, it becomes serious pretty quickly. And you might be lucky, and it may not. It may be good, clean fun, and you win everyone. But I'm yet to meet someone who that's been the case for. And so I think as you progress, you learn to use that experience and you build on it. And I think that reflection that you talked about is really important, because you reflect on what you did on the last one, and you learn to go forward. My personal ritual was I would just have a cigarette before I set off, sit down and just think about what was to come, run through what was going to happen, and then off you go.
We've got some time for a few questions from if something on your mind, something you're wondering about. It wasn't that long ago these folks were right where you are now. I'm bringing a mic up to you since I don't seem to have anybody else here.
This question goes out to all of you. Of course, you're all in positions that require really taxing training, and it's a difficult career field. So once you get past and accepted into the career field, how do you deal with the stress of continuing your career? Because it's not just you get through training and the hard work is done. The entire career is difficult. So how do you guys cope with the stress that's put on you?
I think for any career field, at least in the special operations community, the naval special warfare community, there's a career path that's laid out for you. And there are wickets that you have to hit as a second in command officer, and then a diversified tour, and then an officer in charge. And within those individual elements, there are things that you have to do. So like anything else, it's a checklist. You're like, okay, I'm going to check the box here, I'm going to check the box here. You focus on your training, you focus on trying to do a good job, and you know, that's really it. It's no different from anything else in training. It's no different. I mean, it's a constant evolution. You're constantly trying to learn, you know, keeping yourself as physically fit as possible, keeping yourself as mentally sharp as possible, you know, reading other things, and then just checking those boxes. And you're looking down the road for what are those things that could help me be more successful. A diversified career tends to help guys out than a very unilateral one. So look for those things that can make you a better leader, that can make you more effective in that whatever career field you're working in. What are the things that are going to make you better down the road and more successful?
Yeah, and being able to sustain that is definitely surround yourself with good people, both the people you work with or the people you work with. But I think outside of work, don't waste your time on dramatic people. The man standing up back there is my husband, and he's certainly the reason that I'm able to sustain. I was able to sustain that really tough work week, because it is a tough work week, and it's always a tough work week. There's no summer break, there's no spring break, and deployments are exhausting. But honestly, deployment life is about as simple as it gets. It's really it can almost be intoxicating sometimes, because you wake up, you eat, you go get ready for your mission, you run your missions, you go home. Maybe you have some time to work out in the squadron for us, but not really, because you're normally working 14-hour days, and those are just the times you're flying. You go home, you eat, you go to sleep. It's a very simple life on deployment. Exhausting, but simple. When you come home, there's obviously more great facets to your life, but I would say surround yourself with good people, and you'll be able to mentally sustain that career path, whether it's 5 years for you or it's 20.
I think that you should just always do what you want to do and what makes you happy, and that will carry you through, you know, regardless of the stress. Don't focus. You know, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, unsurprisingly, had some good advice. You know, don't focus on where am I going to be in 20 years' time. Focus on what's going to make me happy today. You know, is that being in the military and going on operations? If so, yeah, I'm going to stay in the military, I'm going to do operations. And business will take care of itself. And if you do things that you want to do and you do things that you enjoy doing, funnily enough, that leads you on to more of the same. It's when you start to overthink it, and I've done this a couple of times, so I can say it with confidence, is when you end up doing something that really sucks. You know, I thought, right, for my career, I should go to the Ministry of Defence in London, and I should work for the head of the army, and I did, and I really didn't enjoy it at all. I spent every day, most of my waking hours, just thinking, what on earth am I doing? I can make a spreadsheet in about 10 seconds flat, and that's not what I joined to do. The times when I've really enjoyed it and I've loved it, and it's led to more good things, is when I've just done what I enjoy doing.
Good afternoon, Midshipman First Class Diane Cabrali from the United States Naval Academy. This question is for all of you guys because a lot of us are in leadership positions right now, and they instill this leadership laboratory in the academy, and we're put in positions, especially first class, to be in charge of a small group of people or just midshipmen and our peers. But at what point did it really hit you guys that, hey, I'm actually in charge of people and my decision has a huge impact on them? Because we've been training some professional development, such as plebe summer, saying, okay, tell the plebes to do this, they'll do it, and if you mess up along the way, it's nothing too impactful on them. You can fix it along the way. But whereas you're dealing with people's lives, people's families, how did you handle that, and what kind of personal reflection did you have on that?
It's a great question. I think when I spoke at the Forrestal lecture series, you guys hit me up with an amazing question also. So, no, I would say, I would honestly say for me, I mean, I think in training, a lot of things we do, you are pushing the envelope. We have killed individuals in training. Across the military, it's happened. And we need to do that because we have to push as hard as we can to be effective. We want people to be in those most extreme situations. But I will be honest, combat was really probably the first time that really sank in very quickly, that we were going out on a mission, and I was like, wow, I'm in charge of all these people, and the decisions that I make, where I place guys, how I direct fire, how I handle when individuals are wounded, how quickly I can bring in, close air support or anything, their lives depend on it. And bigger than that, the ripple effect, the lives of the helicopter crews that we're calling in, the lives of the medevac crews, the lives of the quick reaction forces if we get in trouble. So reversing that, taking it back to that lower level where you guys are at, just think about that for the future. And think about how would you like to be led, How would you, if you were not the one leading, if you were the one that someone was in charge of you, what decisions would you like to make? You would like them to invest in you so that you could also be successful and make a difference, knowing that they care about the outcome, whether it's something as simple as school activity, or it gets all the way as complicated as combat, where the threat of death or bodily injury could be part of it. So.
And I'd say embrace your training. Once again, make your mistakes in your training and don't be afraid to make bold decisions when you do train, because when it really counts, that's when you want to make the best decisions possible, but you want to know what those decisions are. The air community is very unique in the fact that for me, it was only officers that I was actually outside the wire with, because in Cobras, it's just 2 pilots. But sometimes my -2, my wingman, was a lieutenant colonel. Right? And there I was, like a captain, and I had a lieutenant colonel as my -2, but he was there to be my wingman. He could have changed the flight schedule to be in charge if he wanted to be, right? So I had to have the confidence in my abilities and my decision-making to be able to execute in combat. And also, when you're in training, the most important thing that you can do is recognize the talents of every single member of your platoon, of your shop, whatever it is. And I think that people naturally have like a top performance bias, right? Who's that stud? And that's who I'm going to rely on for everything. And I told this story at a panel I sat in at the Naval Academy a few weeks ago, but I have a good friend. He was an infantry platoon commander in Afghanistan, and he had a Marine who, to put it politely, he was not a stellar performer. Right, but he had Humvees that were down. He was out at a FOB, right, it's like an island in the middle of a combat zone, and he had Humvees that are down, and it turns out this kid was an amazing with cars, right? Car mechanic, had been putting cars together since he was 5 years old. And so my friend now had up Humvees that he was able to take out on patrol, go out and support convoys that were bringing his Marines their supplies because he recognized the talent in this young Marine who wasn't necessarily the best at other things that we would expect him to be. So use that training time to also recognize what attributes your subordinates bring to actually fight as a whole team.
I think the first time I realized was pretty much, I think, a month after training. I had to tell one of my soldiers that his mother had died. And it suddenly struck me that I didn't, and he started asking me questions about how he was going to get home and you know, who else knew and where did his sister know? And it suddenly struck me that, you know, this guy who filled, you know, whatever, rifleman number 2 in my platoon slot had a whole other sort of thing going on other than what I was necessarily interested in when I first assumed appointment, i.e., is he going to keep up on the run? Can he shoot straight or whatever else? So I think that really made me think that you just got to learn your people and invest in them and spend, you know, 5 or 10 minutes spent chatting to someone rather than just walking past and saying, hey, how you doing? Will reap dividends. And then that feeds into how you act and the way that you lead when you're in operations, because you know your people, you know what makes them tick and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they've learned to trust you and respect you as a result of your efforts and investment.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much. We're going to, the bus doesn't leave for about 5 minutes yet, so if you all wouldn't mind hanging around as we close the ceremonies, folks would probably get a chance to chat with you, or maybe later this evening to chat with you. We're going to wrap it up. It's been an amazing couple of days. We've taken away some great lessons in leadership. We've been asked, that each one of us ask ourselves, are we the kind of leader that we would follow? What is it in us, what is it in others that inspire you, and is that in you? Can you reach down and pull it out? I mentioned yesterday that 60% of the people in this room will end up doing things that have not yet been invented. You'll face issues and challenges that have never heretofore been exposed. How do you prepare for that? What's inside of you that's going to allow you to do that? We've had those lessons here these last 2 days. Medal of Honor recipients, people that have looked into the teeth of the tiger and on occasion stuck their head in there. Is that in each one of us, and what's it going to take? We use the word hero way too much in this country. We use the word great way too much in this country. Great ball players, great this and great that, and heroes for that and the other. And pretty much everyone that I've ever met that's been hit with that moniker hero says, oh no, that's not me. That's the guy that didn't come home. That's the people that didn't get credit for what they actually did. Churchill once expressed that when he was commended for his great leadership in World War II, he said, no, I'm not the heart of the lion. It's you, the people that are lion. I've had the privilege merely to give it the roar. We have a great legacy behind us. We'll have a great heritage, and we have a great opportunity ahead of us. We heard from a young lady who lived under the oppressive government of communism and a regime that was bloodthirsty as they get. We're dealing with people that cut others' heads off, show it on YouTube. We never thought we would see that. We never thought we would experience that. That's something they did 1,000 years ago. We don't know. So I'm asking you, learn all you can about all you can. Reach down deep inside. Study the people that have faced the tiger. Study their lives and their habits. Learn from them. Talk to them. Engage in a conversation. And always put yourself in a position to make hard decisions. We heard yesterday about sometimes there are 2 decisions. You can go one of either way, and both of them are bad. That's life. Goes with the territory. Got to figure that out. I'm counting on someone in here curing cancer and helping me out in my old age as I dribble and drool more than I do already. I'm counting on you to get to Mars and stop all this crap that we've had to deal with and face. Counting on you to stand up and say, follow me. That's leadership. It's out where the rubber meets the road. A few years ago, we had a gentleman here named Tex Hill. Now, I'm sure you're surprised to learn that Tex was from Texas. He was a fighter pilot in the CBI, China, Burma, India, flew with the Flying Tigers. We heard about them. They made a movie about Tex Hill called Flying Tigers, and John Wayne played Tex Hill. Tex was here. I had a chance to chat with one of his wingmen who talked about the pre-flight briefing before you go out. Getting to know what's ahead, what's the plan, what's the objective, and what are we going to do if things should go wrong. Texas pre-flight briefing consisted of 2 words. That's leadership. Put yourself in that position. You lead from in front, not from the rear. Leaders eat last. Take care of those people that are your wingmen, your support, your troops, those people that are going to come and pull your butt out of the hot fire. Remember your families. They're really proud of you. They're really proud of what you've accomplished already in your life. Live up to it. Deserve victory. Win not through the evil in someone else, but through the merit in yourselves. 2 days you've listened pretty much nonstop to those kinds of stories. Hold them dear. Tonight we're going to celebrate American Veteran Center's honors. We're going to hear some more stories and meet some more people that have walked on the moon and stuck their head in the mouth of that tiger. We are indeed fortunate, us Americans. We are truly indeed fortunate to have such people. And they sit in this audience. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for what you have done, what you are doing, and thank you all for what you will do. We've got a couple of things that we have to get done. So I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me. First, we are going to announce the winning entry to the American Veterans Center iHistory oral history program video contest. I'm trying to read notes and talk to you at the same time. And we have a brief film. I hope it's keyed up. I think it is. The winner is Evan Warner. Is Evan here? I don't see anybody. No. I can't hear you. The film is not ready. So is the film being prepared? Okay, well, we have a couple other announcements then to entertain you while we wait.
I don't know how entertaining it is, but I have some key important announcements. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Toomey. I'm one of the folks on the AVC staff that brought you all here. So remember, after you get back to Arlington, for those of you that are staying in Embassy Suites or the DoubleTree or the apartments, the bus leaves to come back to the Omni at 1700. So don't miss the bus. Okay, that's the first important thing. The next important thing is a number of you were selected last night to escort some of our honorees from their table at the honors to the dais. When you get there tonight, just a reminder, check in with Amy Fisher and she'll give you the final instructions. And I also told you last night I would like one student leader to meet with me after this. After we're all done, we'll meet out in the area where we ate lunch earlier. It'll only take 2 minutes. I promise you won't miss the bus leaving here to get back. So one student leader so we can go over what's going to happen on the red carpet and during the Doolittle toast. All right? Thanks, Craig.
Couple cautions about tonight. This is the first time we've had this at the Shoreham, so I'm not sure how tight quarters are, but they do tend to get tight, so please be aware we have people in chairs. Kind of look behind you. and help make way as they enter and are prepared. Have I stretched this out long enough to have the film ready? We have a 4.5-minute film to be shown, and then we'll head to the bus. We have what, 10 minutes? Okay, so we're in good shape. Is the film ready? No, the film is not ready. I beg your indulgence, and I'll try and not bore you anymore with my comments, but the bus... Yeah, that'd be... I have this little song and dance routine. So I'm going to ask you to kind of hold on just for a minute and see if we can get this film to go. Technology is a wonderful thing, but only when it works. Well, you know, there's lots of